Albanese had a train wreck interview with Ben Fordham on 2GB, and in it he started ranting incoherently, almost like it was Biden, but you'd fed Biden about 50 Red Bulls. That was how he was behaving, and it was because he was avoiding questions which the answer was already in the public domain. And the only way I could describe it was that he is starting to panic. And if we had a Liberal leadership that was a little bit stronger, perhaps he would already be finished. But do you think he is going to try and rush this referendum forward? Because it already looks like no is above in every state.
No is doing very, very well in the polling, but as I say, I keep coming back to that $50 million. I wouldn't be complacent. But look, we heard this week that Anthony Albanese has accepted an invitation to the White House for a state reception there with Joe Biden. That's if Joe Biden knows who Anthony Albanese is. He'll be wheeled out on the night, I'm sure. But that means that the really only feasible, viable date for the referendum is around about that October the 14th, which means that we may well see Anthony Albanese call the referendum officially this weekend, given that the timing that's needed before a referendum can be held on a date like October 14. So watch this space. We might be into a full-on referendum campaign in the coming days.
Well, of course, there are still Indigenous voices fighting for equality rather than equity, and the preservation of the Australian nation as one people with one voice. Those two prominent ones who deserve to be called for is Jacinta Price and Warren Mundine, who've been doing an excellent job trying to hold this nation together instead of divided by the lines of race. Now, Lyle, is it time that we stand up against the Marxist rhetoric that race is effectively a state-funded credit card? Because all we have, every single one of us, you, me, we've all got thousands of years of what you could call intergenerational trauma, but that is not an excuse to put your hand into the pockets of hardworking citizens and demand benefits and payments. And there is an entire industry, often a corrupt industry, that has built itself on this idea that race equals trauma or disadvantage. And in truth, we are all Australian citizens and we should all remain equal.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, without wanting to get too politically philosophical about this voice debate and referendum is about entrenching Marxist critical race theory into the Constitution. And that's a toxic theory. It's this idea of oppressors and the oppressed, and it's something which is never, ever resolved. And it's not about reconciliation, it's about retribution. And of course, Australia's past wasn't perfect. They keep talking about truth-telling. No one is hiding the truth of Australia's past. You've only got to read any historian, and I've just been reading Geoffrey Blaney's Triumph of the Nomads, which is a wonderful account of Aboriginal history and how they lost their tribal nomadic lifestyle and their way of life. And yes, there were terrible things. There were some terrible massacres on both sides. And what we need in this country is forgiveness and reconciliation and a coming together, not a makarata, which is payback. We need to be coming together in a spirit of forgiveness. We can't undo the past. We can say sorry to each other for what's happened in the past. Australia was going to be colonised, but to keep us in this perpetual cultural Marxist oppressed framework is no recipe and creates no framework for us to move ahead as one together. And that's the distressing thing about what's happening through this political debate.
Yes, it's put Australia in a worse position than it has ever been in. Thank you very much, Marxism. Well, Lyle, it was wonderful. Thank you for joining us here today on Spectator TV.